Named among the most powerful people by Forbes and Times, she's helped to transform the retail banking industry in India, broken many glass ceilings, while empowering women along the way. All this while epitomizing dignity, grit and poise. Therefore, it's such a pleasure and an honor to welcome Chanda Kochhar, the CEO and MD of ICICI Bank. Ms. Kochhar, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Pleasure.
So let me start by asking you, in India we have a very peculiar, rare situation in terms of the financial industry where 1 in 5 financial institutions is led by women, whether it's a money management company, insurance company or a big bank. Why this is unique is because our financial industry is still very nascent, and if you look at the world around, women are still sort of struggling to reach the top echelons of the corporate ladder. Looking at all of this, would you say that female bankers in India are actually better off than their Western counterparts?
Well, indeed, India has done much better in this respect than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
And, you spoke about the entire financial services sector. Again, if you look at even just banking,
Right.
40% of banking assets today are led by women, and which is an example by itself by any international standards. And when I say this the world over,
Right.
the reaction is like a very pleasant surprise.
Right.
But if we just look back as to why this has happened, while, as you said, the financial services industry is probably nascent in India, but banking industry is not nascent in India. And,
Right.
and the other thing is that women in banking is not really a nascent phenomena. In fact,
Okay.
when I started my career in the early 80s, that was really the time when women were joining the professional workforce really in an organized manner. It
Okay.
was 35 years ago when you
Yeah.
saw this move happen. And at that time, banking was one of the industries that women really chose. Maybe they view it as a safe working environment, as gender neutral policies and so on. So banking is an industry where we've had women who've spent 25, 30 years of their life,
Right.
grown through the file and ranks, and therefore today you have a lot more women to choose from when it comes to choosing women at the top management. So
That's
I think
great.
that's really been the history of the Indian banking industry. I think gradually many other industries in India will go through the same.
We definitely hope so, Now, if you look around the world also, the Fortune 500 companies, those that have 3 or more women on their board gain a significant performance advantage over their counterparts. Would you then say that having women in top management positions on the board actually gives companies a tipping point, or would you say that leadership is actually oblivious to gender?
So let me break this question of yours in 2 points. One is gender diversity in workforce, and the second is leadership and gender. So I would say that gender diversity in workforce, and at every level, right from the starting level up to the board level, I think is very important, because that improves the performance, the productivity, etc. of the organization. And why
Right.
does it do that? Because diversity in gender brings diversity in thinking.
Okay.
So any kind of decision making, I mean, you would just know that you have actually looked at it from many more aspects if you've had both the genders looking at it rather than one gender looking at it. So
Definitely.
I think in general, gender diversity, and I would not say just at the board level, I always say this, that even in a automobile company, in a car designing team, if you had more women, you'd find more space to keep your handbag, because that's how they would have thought about it. So
Right.
I think it is very important to have gender diversity at all levels, and
Okay.
that is what contributes to improved performance and so on. Having said that, per se, every leader and leadership is really gender neutral. It's more about what the person is, whoever is the leader, whether it's a male or a female, what are the leadership qualities, what is the vision he or she draws up for the organization, how does he or she work with the team, carries the team along, and gets that vision actually executed. So I think these are 2 different points, but both are very valid.
Okay, great. And when you look back at your own journey, do you feel that you've had to work doubly hard or constantly prove yourself in order to avoid being stereotyped by your gender?
So, what is stereotype? Again, when I joined the workforce in the 80s, I was, as a young girl, visiting factories as a loan inspection officer or a loan appraisal officer. And I think that was something which was a kind of a shock for the corporates when I visited their factories at that time.
Right.
But, all those stereotypes are gone. So, you talk of stereotypes now, we have, in fact, girls in our organization who want to do jobs like sales, collection, etc., which were in the past stereotyped for, being for men.
For men, right.
We are now talking of Indian Air Force recruiting women fighter pilots. So where is the stereotype? We have young girls who are getting us medals in wrestling. So I think a lot of these stereotypes are disappearing.
Yeah, that's great. Again, very inspiring to hear that, especially given that you've had so many years of experience and you've dealt with things on the field and of course within the office space. Now this is a bane for most accomplished women that I'm sure you've also undergone, where they're almost maintaining, there's this constant sort of struggle to maintain dual identities in the family life and in the work life. Now you've been a working wife, you've been a working mother, you've been a top boss. And you seem to have done all this with aplomb. You've done it with a lot of dignity, a lot of grace, a lot of poise. Is there a secret behind that, or are there days when, like everybody else, you find it very overwhelming?
People talk of work-life balance. So, in my view, that arriving at that balance doesn't mean that I'll choose 60% of work and 40% of personal life, or 70% of one and 30% of the other, and make it equal to 100. I don't think that is balance.
Right.
I think balance is to say that I will do 100% at work and 100% in personal life, and never 200% life. And I think, in my view, yes, is it overwhelming? Well, it can always keep getting overwhelming because you're trying to achieve 200% instead of 100%.
Exactly.
But that is the wholesome life, and that is what we all should choose to live. Now, yes, as we choose to live that, is it easy? It's not easy. It requires a whole amount of time management. I mean, there is frankly no second to waste to stand around in the corridors and gossip. In my mind, either I have work, or if I can finish work, I can go home and and spend some time with family. So there is constant time management. There is constant prioritization, and I always say that it's a minute by minute prioritization, because at one point your priority is to attend the most important meeting, and then maybe give up on a Parents Teachers Association meeting that may be happening in school. Right. At the other time, your priority is probably to just spend, just sit with your child if he or she is sick, and miss a meeting in the office. So you're on a moment by moment making choices, prioritizing, but over your life, you've managed to do both, and done both well.
I think most women actually become gatekeepers to their own ambition, because they, I think, sort of held back by guilt a lot of times. So I'm again very glad to hear that you manage this 200%, and your family is with you, supporting you and cheering you on. That's again very, very inspiring to hear, I'm sure, for most of the working mothers who beat themselves up about this. So great to hear that. Now, looking at you've been in a top leadership position for so many years. We've heard all the qualities that successful business leaders need to emulate, whether it's hard work, time management, like you mentioned, dedication. But what are some of the lesser known qualities that you think that leaders today should sort of emulate in order to succeed in India Inc., especially given like 2017?
Well, I think one is that, the world today is changing faster than what anybody would have thought of so far. So, your ability to keep up with times, whether it's technology, whether it's changing business models, whether it's understanding what's happening in the environment, whether it's actually anticipating what will happen in the environment and keeping your organization ready for it, your own skills ready for it. I think the requirement of that is even more today than what it was in the past. But the other thing also, which is lesser known in my belief, is the fact that some of these qualities need to be combined. So it's not just about these qualities, but you combine the quality of having a dream with hard work. It's not enough to have one of the two. You need a combination of that, and that is what makes you succeed. Also, as I always say, that in fact, as you become a leader at a higher and higher level, I think the combination of vision and execution is again very important. You need to have a vision for your organization or your business, whatever you're leading. I'm saying everybody is not a CEO, you are a business head, but you need a vision of where you want to take that business, but at the same time you need to have an eye on execution. So in my view, these qualities are all very well known, but you need the right combination of these qualities so that you actually create value for everybody around you.
Okay, that's great. And to wrap up our interview, if you had any advice to give to future banking leaders, especially female bankers, what would that be?
Well, I will say that, women today are breaking all barriers. So I think there is actually no stopping to their ability to achieve anything except their own ability to dream. So, I would say that every young girl today must have a dream and must back it up with hard work. Most of the time, as I said, it's we women who just don't dare to dream big. We think that we will not be able to live the 200% life. We feel that we have to create 100% by choosing 50 of one, 50 of the other. We don't dare to dream to say, I will combine both the hundreds and live a 200% life. We sometimes, especially women who then get married and are just starting a family, say this is the most difficult part of my life and I have to give up one for the other. So my advice is that there will be time periods in your life where you would find this double going even more difficult. But just don't give up at that time, because those are moments, those are phases in your life. If you go through those difficult moments, you actually then survive the rest of it even better. So, don't constrain your dream. First, that's the advice. And then the second is, of course, the dream has to be backed by hard work. And if you do this, just sky's the limit for all the young women that I meet all the time.
Lovely. I want to applaud to that. What inspiring words. Truly, we should not give up on our own dreams because, and not be again gatekeepers to our own ambition. We should live the 200% life. I think for demonstrating a commitment beyond the bottom line to women, to bankers, to communities, to Indians, you know why she's the boss. Thank you, Ms. Kochhar, so much for joining us here today. I'm sure all the women watching are going to be even more inspired. You're really a role model for thousands and millions of women around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.